Paula Coomber, Seaside Radio, here today with
Brian Cloke.
And today, Brian, you're going to tell me about your involvement with Withernsea High School.
Yes, that's right, Paula. I'm Chair of Governors at Withernsea High School, so perhaps I can tell you a bit about the governing body at Withernsea High and what we do. The governing body has about 19 members on it, and there's 4 different types of governor. There's community governors, which is I'm one of those. There are some appointed by the local education authority. There's 4 of those. There are parent governors, who are very important, so obviously they're parents of students at the school. There's 6 of those. And there are staff governors, so the staff have some teaching representatives, and the head teacher herself is also a voting member of the governing body.
And what do governors actually do?
Well, it's probably easy to start with what we don't do.
Right.
We don't manage the school on a day-to-day basis. We're not operational managers. We're not involved in that at all. We do 3 things really. We get involved in strategic management. So that's to say, we were involved in the decision to change the specialism from technology to humanities, which we did a year or so ago. That sort of thing. We review policies and make sure those policies, such as anti-bullying and behaviour, are well written and that they are implemented, and we monitor the progress of those policies. So that's the strategic management. We like to think we're a critical friend. That's the second thing. So we're invited to come into school and perhaps go into lessons along with another observer. That's called learning walks.
Oh,
that's quite interesting. And then we politely put forward constructive suggestions, some of which are taken up and some of which aren't. But you know, that's the critical friend aspect. And the third, the sort of legal bit, is that we are the accountable body for the school. So that means that, for example, 2 years ago we had an Ofsted inspection. We came out with the overall category satisfactory, which we were slightly disappointed with. We wanted to be in the good category. And the local education authority asked the head teacher and me, as the chair of the governing body, to go and be interviewed by a scrutiny panel at County Hall in Beverley. And that's part of the sort of the accountability side of it. Generally, the performance of the school, we are the accountable body.
Lovely. And do you sort of volunteer to be a governor, or are you co-opted on?
I think co-opted is the more honest answer. As I say, there are 4 categories of governor. Community governors, they used to be called co-opted governors, and that's exactly what they are.
Right.
When I was invited on, at that stage I was on the town council. I'm not on the town council anymore, but I was deputy mayor at that stage. And the chair of governors was Dr. Foraker, the younger Dr. Foraker.
Robert.
Yes, Robert. And he invited me to come on to the governing body. Another governor, Kath Jones, also recommended me. And so I went on. And then I became deputy chair about 3 or 4 years later. And then the then chair was Christine Eldred. She's now also back as a governor, but she resigned because her husband was unfortunately terminally ill. So I stepped into her shoes and took over as chair. That's about 2.5 years ago.
And you're still there, so you must enjoy what you're doing.
I enjoy it thoroughly. It's the one thing. I'm now fully retired. Well, my wife and I are fully retired. Well, my last job was as a registrar of birth, marriages and deaths, which was interesting. I'll tell you a bit about that later. But I finished that in 2006. And so I've got quite a bit of time on my hands, and this gets me involved very much in the school and indeed in the community.
And it's very important to sort of, I suppose in a way, mentor the children, give them a good example.
Yes, and what I want them to do is to feel proud of Withernsea. A lot of students, I think, can't wait to get out of Withernsea, and I don't know how lucky they are really, because it's a very nice part of the world.
I agree.
Our crime rate is pretty low. Obviously we have our problems in the town, but it's a very nice town. I want people to be proud of Withernsea and say, yeah, I'm from Withernsea and I want to work there if I can. Okay, employment opportunities are not great, but that's what we're trying to encourage. So I think it's not just about academic results, although obviously they do matter and that gets you certain ratings, but we are very keen on what we call enterprise as well, which is really getting the students to apply what they're learning in the real world, which is so important. An example of that, where every year we have a thing called the Lionheart Challenge at the school, and that's It's an organisation, I think it's organised by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, but the Lionheart group come and they set the whole of the Year 9 groups, about 150, 160 students, a task for the day, and it might be to sort of think of an idea that's going to improve road safety or health and well-being, and they come up with all kinds of fancy ideas, and they work in teams of 10, and they then have to cost that out in terms of manufacture costs, marketing costs, and try and come up with a business plan to make a profit, which is applying maths in a very real world situation. And that's a really good challenge, and I think that's the sort of thing where I think enterprise is really important. It's not just about teaching academic subjects.
Of course. And on Friday we were both invited to the Governor's Annual Awards.
Yes.
And I must say I was very proud to be doing that. How do you feel when you're handing out these awards to these
Very, very
students?
proud. Very, very... we want to recognise and I want any achievements as and when they happen. We try to publicise them. As I think I said in my little brief speech on that day, the students themselves are doing a really good job with Our Voice, which is the insert in the Gazette, which I think Sarah Harris has probably led on. But we also like to try and make sure there's plenty of publicity for what the school achieves, the Rock Challenge, that sort of thing, productions at the school. And we're trying to link the school and the community as much as we can to try and get different organisations. Baines and Construction, for example, they're closely involved with the school, providing, if you like, alternative learning programmes for some of the students who are more academically challenged and would prefer to be in that environment, a working environment.
Sort of like the old apprenticeships.
Exactly, like
scheme.
the old apprenticeships, exactly that, yes.
Wow, and that's marvellous because it makes them feel good about themselves if they find something they can do.
Indeed it does, yeah.